so much for joining us today. I know who you are, and I know what you mean to the world of inclusion and what you mean to me personally as a friend. But can you tell everybody else who you are, where you're at, and a little bit about My Team Triumph?
Well, first, thank you for having me on your podcast. And I think it's a brilliant idea to get like-minded individuals talking about things that matter. And in our lives, we all want to do something that moves the needle, and I believe we have, both independently and together. So I'm Terence Reuben. I am one of the co-founders of My Team Triumph, the current national board president and the executive director for the West Michigan chapter. And I hail from far, far away, but I'm sure we'll take a dive into that soon. But yeah, I'm excited to talk to Terry about what adaptive mobility is all about.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So for those who don't know, tell us what My Team Triumph is.
Yeah, so back in 2008, some friends and I had got the idea of starting a nonprofit, an organization that would provide opportunities for someone with disabilities. And it was originally just, hey, how can we make a difference? And as we explored different ideas of where we could make a difference, we narrowed it down to what are some of the things that we as athletes take for granted, which is going out there and racing and enjoying that bit of life. How could we incorporate that into an organization? So we founded an organization called My Team Triumph. The idea behind the team is that there would be more than one person trying to get this person with a disability through an event. Why was that important? Is because we have recognized that there were teams out there that were doing this on a one-on-one basis, but those teams got to train with each other. With us, we would technically meet the person with a disability who we call the captain. We will only meet them on race day for the most part. We try to arrange some training options beforehand, but we meet them on race day. And just then meet someone and push them in a chair for whatever that distance is can be very hard. And in our world, failure is not an option. So we recruit 3 athletes to take that captain through that event distance. So we do everything from 5Ks to marathons and from sprint triathlons to the full Ironman distance event using specialty equipment to take our captains through the experiences that we take for granted.
Awesome. And, for me, what touches my heart is listening to Matt Brown tell his story about sitting inside, watching kids outside. Smith, yes. Oh my goodness, Matt Smith, yes.
Matt Smith works with the Brown guy.
Yeah. And watching his friends play and doing things that he didn't feel that he could do, and not participating in things as much as he wanted to. And not feeling like the hero of his story. And was he not one of your very first captains that you guys did an event with?
Yeah, he was actually our first captain. And I remember that first year in 2008, we had 2 captains on the first race and no more than 3 or 4 for the next 3 races that we had. So we call it captain experiences, which means how many different experiences do our captains have in total. And that year it was about 10 experiences in those 6 months that we existed. But now, fast forward to 2023, we provide just in West Michigan about 200 to 225 experiences each year. We'll use about 600 athletes to make that happen. So it's grown from this little small, mindset of how can we just make a small difference? So how can we really move the needle, right? And so we never forget the stories, though, of how we started and what inspires us on to keep doing this. Because I think that's important. If you lose track of your vision, then you're going to lose track of your mission and you're not going to be successful.
Right. And just real quickly, beyond what we've already talked about, can you summarize the mission of My Team Triumph?
Yeah, so the biggest word that stands out in My Team Triumph's mission statement is authentic, right? So one of the things that we want to do as part of our mission is to provide authentic relationships with someone with a disability, and that can be a teenager, a young adult, an older adult, or even a veteran. We actually put the veterans in there as a separate category because we recognize how important it was to take care of our veterans as well and provide them with some of these experiences that we were concocting up, in our sleep. And so with that mission of wanting to move that needle, the bigger picture really is how do we level the playing field when it comes to inclusion? And inclusion can mean different things to different people, right? I grew up in South Africa. Inclusion there was a racial issue, but inclusion could be a religious issue. Inclusion could, it's in our case, yeah, isn't it? But it's an issue with disability, right? And how do we have someone with a disability participate in events and activities that we just take for granted? So I think that we've come a long way over the years, but we've got so much more to go to create this level playing field when it comes to inclusion. My world is going to be where we don't have to even use the word inclusion. That's how inclusive we are.
Right? Yeah. I think the progress that we've seen in the 8 years with My Team Triumph, but even in the last 4 years has been incredible. We're becoming more common. And when I say we're becoming more common, those of us assisting athletes who aren't able to do it on their own to cross a finish line, to do an event, to participate in something that they did not or could not do before, giving them that experience. And, it was before where we didn't see anybody. And then a few years ago, we were seeing 1 or 2 duo teams. And now we're seeing so many more. And it is absolutely wonderful. I know of a handful of duo teams that just did the Chicago Marathon last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And before that just didn't happen.
Right.
So even at Ironman this year, Beth and Liza were the only assisted athlete duo team as far as, Beth doing the pulling, the running, the swim for Liza. But then there were also 2 young women who were blind that had guides with them. And it is so inspiring and so touching. And people don't understand. If you don't know, you don't know. Right. It gives us such an opportunity to educate others. And we can talk all day long. You and I are really good at that. But the proof is in the concept of showing everybody what is possible. I think you still get, and My Team Triumph in West Michigan is very well known, very well respected. And you see you guys out participating in all kinds of events. But I imagine to this day, you still get people coming up in awe of the program and the organization and the how do I get involved?
Absolutely. As long as we have been in existence, because we were the original first chapter. The start of the organization was right here in West Michigan. And we just had this weekend past was the Grand Rapids Marathon. And that was year 1. We had done the Grand Rapids Marathon. And we were actually talking about it. I remember back then, all the rules of any race said no strollers allowed on the course. But the race directors that agreed to allow us to race, they changed that. And they said, you know what? We do allow strollers, but they need to be with this organization because they know what they're doing. And that's how we will continue to provide opportunities, safe opportunities for people out there on our race courses.
So how has that equipment changed over the years?
How is the equipment?
The equipment. So when you guys started with like Freedom joggers.
Right.
And then how has that evolved and how has that changed for you guys?
Well, on our end, we've tried to incorporate, we're using a lot more of the Adaptive Star equipment right now. And I think Adaptive Stars really address the issue of adaptive mobility, the ability to adapt to our movement. And when I look at when we started, we used cycle totes when we did the bike portion of a triathlon. So we would have our captains in a boat, and then we would do the swim course with them. We'd move them into a cycle tote, tow it behind our bicycles for the bike portion, and then put them in a jogging stroller, like an advanced special needs baby jogger, and push them through that run. When that equipment evolved with Adaptive Star, we were able to we're able to utilize your equipment that combines both the biking equipment and the running equipment into one.
Mhm.
So that was pretty exciting for us. And I think the next phase for me is to have a certain sort of custom seat that a captain sits in on the boat, and you take that seat and you just clip it into the bike stroller, and then off you go. And
Mhm.
he stays in there, or she stays in there, and they continue with the run. So now we've truly covered all three events of a triathlon. But what else advanced mobility and advanced adaptive star has done for us is that they've allowed us to race faster, because your equipment has been fine-tuned over years, from heavy steel equipment to much more lighter carbon equipment. And so as we've carved our niche in racing with someone with a disability, we've also became a lot more competitive.
Mhm.
And to that end, we were invited to be part of the USAT Nationals Championships in Milwaukee for the last 3 years now. And we were so excited that we were able to do that, which then pushes what we're doing with My Team Triumph to that next level.
That's fantastic. So do you feel, I mean, your professional career, was this a natural transition for you to be part of starting My Team Triumph? And as an athlete, I mean, was there a pull to that? How do you feel all of that? Was it just grassroots? Was it a natural feeling for what you were going to do?
I think for me, the primary draw was that I was an athlete first. And I had done the Wisconsin Ironman in 2007 because I was turning 40 that year, and I wanted to be able to race and prove that I could still do some stuff.
Mhm.
Well, when I came back from there, though, I was inspired to do something for someone else. So as much as 2007 was a selfish event for me, it was also an eye-opener that allowed us to now do a lot more things for others. And when you get into that mindset of servitude, I grew up in South Africa in a pastor's home. My dad was a pastor, my mom's a missionary. We were always in that servitude, serving attitude. And so to transition from that mindset into helping someone with a disability doing things that I actually enjoy on the sports side was a natural transition. It helped that I'm a physical therapist, so I know a lot about the equipment and the seating and the positions and what's ideal for those longer distances. And we've talked a lot about small things that we can do to adapt the current equipment so that we can then take care of current and future needs.
Mm-hmm. Which has been wonderful. The first time I met you in Las Vegas at a My Team Triumph conference, Terence is a big personality, and he's not afraid to tell you what is on his mind and what he is thinking. And my first interaction with him was, who in the heck is this guy? And does he have anything good to say about the equipment I brought? He was just like, well, what about this? And have you thought about this? And all of these things, which he really challenged myself and Adaptive Star to make that next jump. And from positioning and the seating and being an athlete and knowing the things that worked well for you, knowing the things that worked well for My Team Triumph, before, and what didn't, and what you wanted to see.
Right.
You were able to help us become so much more and so much better. And I love every conversation we have, because it's like when you were talking about, well, I want to see how we can do this. I was praying to God you were not going to want me to figure out how to put floats on the chairs.
No, we're getting closer to that concept. Remember what I just started talking about with the tri-sport? Yeah. We have a floating seat. Who needs a boat?
So, I mean, as you were saying that, I'm like, oh, okay. Because I had missed that part. A seat that they could sit in, that Matt could sit in the boat that could then click into the chair.
Right.
For some people, that would work amazingly well.
Well, and when you think about it, especially now that we're racing and becoming more competitive, where do we lose most of our time?
Transition,
taking them out of the boat, trying to get them in their chairs, strapped up. If we could have them all strapped and ready to go while they're in that boat, that transition, boom, boom, it's done. Off we go. We're racing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We got a NASCAR this thing. A Grand Prix at Formula One.
What do you, I mean, the competitive side of you, and I mean, you've done a lot of events, you've done a lot of transitions, you've been the athlete, you've also been the crew, you've been the Sherpa. What do you feel your best transition time and what has worked well for you?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the best transition time is the one where the transition area is right next to the swim exit, which is right next to the bike exit, and that doesn't happen all the time.
Right.
So for us, it's just a matter of the barrier-free part of it, right? So I remember doing Steelhead, Ironman Steelhead a few years ago when Johnny Ager was just getting into the Ironman distance events, and the transition was from the water's edge up this really long beach to where the transition was, which didn't seem like much of a feat when we walked it, the day before. But on the day off, when that sand was all chewed up by all the other athletes, it was hard work. I had to stop twice just to get my breath. So, as someone that's in that crew, in order for us to improve transitions, not only is proximity important, but also the physical ability of the person helping with the transfer, right? You can't just know what to do. You got to be able to do it and do it fast. Because of my athletic experience, I've been able to help the AGARs, for example, with their races quite a bit, trying to get that fast transition going. And quite often, we're sitting around waiting for Jeff.
Oh, Jeff, bless his heart.
We love the AGARs, which is why I know I can say that. It's our inside joke.
Oh, we do. Only the AGARs would leave a front wheel at home.
Yeah, exactly. I was on that trip. Yep. Germany.
I knew because I knew where you were and I knew what you guys were doing. And when my phone rang and I saw it was you, I'm like, oh, Mother, please let everything be okay. Because if Terence is calling me right now, something is up. And then we left the front wheel at home. Where do I get one? Give me some specs because we got to find a front wheel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we figured it out. Yeah.
We figured it out.
Yeah. So, the other thing I was thinking of is if I looked at what is the ideal transition is to get our captains transition before the angels are ready. So if we can do that really fast, so we don't want the angels to be standing around too long waiting for us.
Right.
So we really try to make sure we have crew in the right places. And that makes a big difference as well. Yeah,
it does. And I asked that coming out of, Kona last weekend. We had an incredible transition from swim to bike. I mean, it was just this smooth machine. It went really, really well.
Yeah.
Which, you just can't help but feel so good about because there wasn't stand around time. It just was fluid, which was really awesome. And then I'm like, okay, I have to ask Terence about this. What's his best transition time?
I've done so many races, my best transition time is when I can have a chit chat with the captain as I'm transitioning him and just telling him how awesome they were to have made it through that swim, and now let's get on that bike, or through the bike, now let's get out on that run.
Right.
And their faces light up from even each level.
There's nothing better.
Yeah, that's my best transition time.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. There's really nothing better than that. There's nothing, I'm the 5K girl. I am not the Ironman that you are. And I only cross the finish line with our captains, other assisted athletes, because that's what's in my heart. Otherwise I'll go out and play with my goats, or I'll go for a nice country walk, or, a little bit of training, but that's just not, And
when you say you play with your goats, you mean like four-legged creatures?
Yes.
Oh my God. You've gone to the goat.
I go out and hang. That's my cocktail time. I take a cocktail, I go out and I hang out with the goats.
I thought you were thinking like greatest of all time, but no, you mean goats.
I mean goats, yeah. Never a dull moment, my friend.
I know, right?
So, Captain's Ball, you mentioned that earlier. Tell us what that's about.
So, in our times that we spend with our captains at all these races that we do, it's very brief in the sense that we meet them right before the race starts. I mean, usually about an hour and a half before the race starts. So we're having this limited time with them in terms of conversation, but we're busy putting equipment together and getting them strapped in and getting them off to the races. And when they're done, they're exhausted. They want to leave. So we thought, we don't get a chance to really celebrate our captains at each race. We do, but we'd like to do more. And the more was this idea of having a ball. Let's have a ball where everyone can gather up, and it's not a race. We just get there and we have a good time and we celebrate our captains. In West Michigan, we call it our friend raiser, because we bring all our friends together. We throw a big party, we raise some funds, but it's really about raising friends.
Right.
And in celebrating our captains, we always highlight captains over the years that will, come through and even deliver a keynote address. For us, we celebrate the captains that we have lost. Sometimes during the year, we have a few of our captains that have passed on, but we celebrate the lives that they had, because they had such a good time racing with us, and they're always with us in spirit. So the Captain's Ball has really become this fun celebration. And originally in West Michigan, it was something that was held in May, early in the spring, and we had this big race that everyone was training for, which is a national championship for a 25K. So most people were running long that morning. And first year, we're like, hey, you know what? Let's just all show up in our running shoes. We'll all dress up, but we'll show up in our running shoes. The idea again of leveling the playing field. If we took one characteristic, if we all wear running shoes, in that aspect, we're all the same. That's quite the hit. So every year, it's been the same thing. We all wear whatever we're wearing. It's running shoes with that outfit. So this year, it's superhero. So we're gonna see, and the superhero is not necessarily Superman or Wonder Woman. It could be anyone that you look up to as a superhero in your life. So I think it's gonna be a fun time to celebrate that coming November 11.
Exciting! Yeah. That'll be a lot of fun. Can you share with us some keynote speakers this year?
Not yet, but we have had Matt Smith address us. We've had Johnny Agar. We've had captains representing families from our Hispanic community. We have captains representing families that have passed, where they've had a death in the family. So it's been an incredible experience to see that and hear their story. Last year, we had Captain Haley, who was highlighted, and her parents. Haley was much younger. She had came to one of our captain's balls with her family, and I think Haley would have been about maybe 4 or 5 years old at that point. And they had no idea what Team Triumph was all about. They thought they were getting into some weird cult. By the end of the evening, they're like, where do we sign up for our first race?
We're all in.
And then we were celebrating this at the local Sharp dealership. So Jaguar, Land Rover, BMW, the Sharp family actually owns it. And George Sharp Jr. was there. And he goes, you know what? If you sign Haley up for a race, I will be her angel. And he did. And that created this incredible relationship where now the dad actually works at the dealership. So last year they got to speak on behalf of Haley and on behalf of the dealership. And it was an incredible opportunity to hear how we connect each other, right? We find the thing that unites us rather than finding the things that divide us.
Right. And I love that. Very well said, my friend. So many relationships have been cultivated through that. Our relationship has been cultivated through that.
Yeah. You remember Boston?
Yeah, I remember Boston, but I was not the one that had all the shenanigans.
Is that what you're telling your audience right now?
Yes.
Yeah, audience, I have pictures. No, it was a good time, but again, it's the idea of how do we find this one common thread? How does someone from Yakima, meet up with someone from South Africa?
Right.
And we had, a captain with us that whole time that we were there, and we just had a great time. Yeah.
It was wonderful. So many memories, things that memories I will cherish for a lifetime, a friendship that will last a lifetime. Not only with you, but with Matt and so many others. And I know for you, those relationships are really important. And I feel like my Team Triumph West Michigan, yes, it's an organization, but you guys are a family.
Absolutely. And this is back to the mission statement, right? What does authentic relationships look like? For me, authenticity is not just smiling and saying hi on race morning, but sending them a little note to see how they're doing. catching them up at other times. We've actually taken a few captains that, were old enough that wanted to go out and like grab breakfast together, or we've done training runs together. And Matt Smith in particular, he came to the Vegas conference with us the one year, and then we took him to Boston. I've actually traveled with Matt and did like 4 marathons on 4 Midwest states to celebrate his 18th birthday. And it was just an amazing experience just for him and I to travel, where the parents actually got a break. And so for me, the appreciation for the work that is involved from the guardian or the parent side as well to take care of our captains is never missed. So we always work our hardest to create this best environment for them every time, every single time.
Yeah, and I love that. That's absolutely awesome. Do you know yet? I mean, I know we're a year out from Kona 24. I'm going to assume that you're going with the Agars.
Yes, I have been ordered by the Agars to accompany them on the trip. No, I was actually talking to them just recently. There was an Ironman, a local Ironman here in Michigan. So Ironman Michigan is a 70.3 distance, and the Agars did that. And we were talking, and Becky Agar happened to mention that, hey, we got this house booked and stuff, and I said something about, well, that sounds like so much fun. And she goes, oh, I thought you'd be more excited. I'm like, well, I haven't assumed that I will be on this trip. And she goes, what do you mean? You're on this trip. We have room for you. So I'm like, dang it, I have to go.
Oh, darn it.
I have to go. Yeah.
Darn it.
I've been blessed to have been with the Agars in 2016 when they were there, and to travel with them when they travel here in the US, or even when we went to Germany to the Roth Challenge together. Right. And I mean, I love Johnny. I've known Johnny since he was 12 years old or something, and the whole Agar family. They're great people. Yeah. They're great stewards of trying to push the envelope when it comes to these kind of challenges. And I always admire people that are using their platform to louden their voice, right? Yeah. Quite often we do things for us, and we forget that there's a greater, louder voice that needs to be heard. And when we have the opportunity to make that voice louder, like through this podcast, then we do it.
Absolutely. It's, I remember the first time I ever talked with Becky. She called the office, and I kind of felt fire hosed. I'm like, who is this woman? I don't know who she is. And she's like, this is who I am, and this is my son, and this is what we're doing, and I need this chair, or I'm going to do this with, I mean, it was just like, it kind of, I'm like, I got on the phone and I was like deer in the headlights. And it took me a few minutes, and I went, okay, now I'm connecting the dots, and now I understand. And, but for me, it was, from that mother aspect, here comes mom who's advocating for her child, and Becky's, she has to advocate in a completely different way than many moms have to, and she's not going to take no for an answer. And that built our relationship. I'm not as close to them as you are, but I know that I can text or call anytime, and I'm going to get a response. Have a conversation. And John, oh my goodness, he's a card.
Oh, yes.
It's a personality.
Well, and this is where I think that it takes a village, right? No matter what you're dealing with, it takes a village in order for us to accomplish the goals and achieve the things that we need to achieve as a community. And what I love about Becky is that she's the glue that holds that whole Team Agar together. Yeah, Johnny is putting in the work and getting his training done, and so is Jeff, and he's doing all the work on race day, getting Johnny ready to walk his last mile. But at the end of the day, the one that pulls it all together, that makes sure things are happening when they should happen, is Becky. So I give a lot of credit to her and an incredible family as well for standing by her side, supporting her, making sure her glass is always half full. Literally and figuratively.
Right. So you mentioned something about Johnny training. And this is the conversation that I had with some people in Kona this last week, because some people assume that the captain does nothing to prepare for big events. So I know that you've had Johnny's trainer, and you have had Johnny on a pretty good regimen. Tell us what that looks like.
Yeah, so I mean, they both are training in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny's biggest thing that he enjoys, loves doing, is walking the last mile of a race.
Right.
And so the endurance that Johnny has to go through outside of just tolerating however many hours in that chair,
Mm-hmm.
then has to switch over to him getting out of the chair and walking a mile.
Right.
And I've seen Johnny walk over the years and get from, a shorter distance or a longer distance each time. And it is incredible to watch him push
Mm-hmm.
through some of the hardest things. He doesn't always walk a mile like in an Ironman. He may walk, I think, at Michigan, the Ironman Michigan in West Michigan. He
Mm-hmm.
walked, I believe, around 100 yards or something,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't come easily. And if he doesn't get the training in, both from a strength standpoint, from walking regularly, from getting his muscles loosened up, from getting his tone, in the right place, from getting the right equipment, he won't be able to do those things. So
Right.
I help and support them as best as I can. Especially with my background as a physical therapist, I'm always
Mm-hmm.
looking for ways in which I can help him be a better athlete.
Right.
So even with my new business, my new practice that I'm opening in January or Feb,
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that they will be able to come and actually do more formal training at the practice. We've
Mm-hmm.
got a couple of really nice pieces of equipment there that'll help him just get better.
That's fantastic. You know, I'm sure that most people don't think of that transition. John is in the raft, John or Liza or any of the other Ironman assisted athletes, they're in their raft for, an hour to an hour 30.
Mm-hmm.
And then they transition to the bike portion, which for John and Jeff is they ride a tandem and John sits behind Jeff on that and is strapped
Mm-hmm.
into his special seat. For Brett and Kyle Pease, Kyle is on the bike, but he's in front of the bike. For Team Liza, she's
Mm-hmm.
in her race chair that converts from a trailer to a race chair. So she's in that one piece of equipment for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Liza's ambulation is improving greatly.
Mm-hmm.
They're not at the point yet, at least not, for some things, for her to be able to do that last little bit on her own, but they're really close.
Right.
So for John, he has to continue to work on his mobility and his strength, but I can only imagine the position that he gets in once he's in you transition from the bike. Now he's got to let his muscles relax and he has to change that position.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's going to transition from his chair to his trainer and he's going to walk that last little bit. What do you think is really involved in that for him?
Well, that's where, Johnny doesn't just go and ride on race day. Even during the training plan, he's out there riding with Jeff and being part of the whole experience.
Mm-hmm.
We work back and forth with different pieces of equipment that we're using to make sure, number one, that it's light. Number two, it's comfortable, but light comes before comfort, right? And number three, safety. Well, safety comes before light and comfort, but we got to make sure that we're trying to create this balance between all three aspects of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so in Johnny's tandem, he's rear facing, which can be a little scary. But he's strapped in. He's stabilized as best as he can. His legs are strapped in so that they're not dropping or moving. And so with any of our athletes with disabilities that we're working with, we're trying to make sure they're in the safest position. We've raced with someone who had a full-on ventilator, strapped to his regular wheelchair. So he only did a running race with us just because that we didn't have to deal with the transition. But when we did put him into one of the chairs, we had to strap on his oxygen tank. He had a suction kit in case he choked during the run. He had a full-on ventilator. We made sure there was a medical person that ran with him. But in that time, he probably did 30 to 50 or more races with us because he gained the confidence of being out there and doing those things. So in challenging the status quo, we can't just get a piece of equipment and put them in it and expect to race. There's an adaptation that has to occur to the environment and to the course itself. And riding in a chair, as beautiful as you make them, they're not super comfortable,
No.
And quite frankly, it's a little scary depending on who's pushing you. So you really have to trust the individual that's doing the pushing and pulling.
Right. And one of the things that we go through with our staff is I put them in a chair.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, we're going to go run around the block. You need to see what this feels like.
Right.
Because the minute you tilt them back, they're like, whoa. What are you doing?
Right.
Like, I mean, it's really a trust fall. It truly is a trust
Mm-hmm.
fall. So it definitely is an experience that I encourage everybody that's involved with our equipment that they have, so they understand what the assisted athlete is feeling.
Right.
Because it's important that you understand what they're going through mentally too, and the trust that they have to have in you.
Right.
So as you are recapping your year for My Team Triumph, and for all of Terence's adventures, there's a couple pretty exciting things coming up for next year.
Yes.
Potentially, depending upon the dynamic of our world. You did something this summer as a proof of concept. Tell us about that briefly and what that looks like in the future.
Yeah, so an official announcement will come out at the Captain's Ball.
Okay.
But what I can say is that we're pushing the envelope for what we can do with the captain, not just on our continent, but abroad. So this next adventure is going to involve travel. It's going to involve teams, multiple teams. It's going to take us through some pretty extensive, road surfaces. But I was able to take one of your chairs out there this summer and test it out with the solid rubber tires that you had sent to us. And we figured out every which way that we can use it and make it work. And one of the things I love about your chairs is it has those nice braces that are actually made of proper metal. And for all the weight saving that we want, having that real metal with a proper screw in allows us to create some of those full on transfers that we need to do. So that it wasn't part of the way in which you intended to use it, but it works.
Great.
So we'll be making an announcement on November 11th. Stay tuned for that. I'm sure Terry will talk about it at one of the follow-up sessions. I'll be happy to come back again because Leah keeps cutting us off. But no, I think it's going to be pretty exciting for our captains. We can push the envelope for travel and get people used to this idea that you don't have to always do something local in your town. You can travel. You can go to New York. You can go to New York. You can go to London. You can go to London. You can go to Tokyo. Let's get our captains out there. Let's get them to experience this world like they never have before.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for helping us do that, for being such a great partner. We really appreciate it. And I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Terence, thank you for joining us today. It's been wonderful visiting with you and learning more about the future plans for My Team Triumph and some of the ways that you guys are spreading the mission of inclusion. I really appreciate it. For people who might want to participate with My Team Triumph West Michigan, or who might want to help financially, how can they find you? How can they do that?
So yeah, there's a couple of different ways that you can access us. The biggest through our national website is myteamtriumph.org, all one word. From there, you should be able to see all the different chapters that we have across the country that are doing the kind of work that we're doing. I'm trying to coordinate a lot of that both nationally and locally. So in West Michigan, we have the mttwestmichigan.org. And through that web link, you'll find out a lot more about who are captains, who are angels, what kind of racing that we do. And that's also the best way if people want to reach out to me to say, hey, you know what, I'd like to know more about the organization. I'd like to figure out how we can continue to do this, both from a financial standpoint or from I'm an athlete. I'd like to be an angel. I would love to connect with you on that.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. For those of you that are looking for an organization to get involved with, whether it's West Michigan, Wisconsin, Texas, they're wonderful. They're great people to work with. I love them. You will too. Until next time, my friend, thank you.
Reuben out.
See you later.